But now it's time to meet some of my heroes. Lovely though it is, here in this sparkly bar, I do sometimes yearn so for places yonder. So I went to the Kingdom of Fife to find one of the hippest musical outfits in the UK. Lauren, they said, get out of the studio. Why don't you go and interview some of the coolest musicians in the country? Hey, what about the Fence Collective? They're making this new future folk music that everybody's going mad about. I love it. I said, brilliant. Send me to the epicentre. So here I am in Anstruther, a small Scottish fishing village in Fife. It's very, very cold here. Luckily, the music's worth it. The Fence Collective. Who are they, I hear you cry?
No one ever was going to be all that impressed.
Well, this is the man who knows, Kenny Anderson, who some of you might recognise as rising star King Creosote.
No one ever was going to be ahead of the rest.
He's also a bit of a Svengali, the man who first spotted Katie Tunstall and the figurehead of the Fence Collective.
So always hoping that I might just get by.
Hey, Kenny.
Hello.
All right there.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very well.
Just relaxing on a lobster pot.
It's just my usual hangout.
Surprisingly comfy, actually.
Yeah.
A little bit stringy,
Well
yet
sprung.
supportive. I like it. So look, Kenny, can you tell me a little bit about how the Fence Collective came about?
Fence Collective came about because I was very disillusioned with all things music related and the sort of industry that we have in Scotland. So I just set out to do something on my own. And for the first few years it was just me on my own imprint. And no matter how much I told people that it wasn't a proper label, that we didn't sign anybody, that we had no money, it seemed to attract other players.
You're like a sort of a brotherhood of like-minded individuals.
Yes, and I think the fact that Fence doesn't own anybody's music, we only deal with people that have got that DIY ethic, and there's nobody signed to Fence, so it means you could go off and do whatever you want at any time. There's no contracts or binding agreements or even handshake agreements.
So it's a bit like factory records, but in a little village by the sea with a slightly more acoustic sound. Oh, and there's plenty of them in the Fence Collective. Here are just a few. There's HMS Gina 4, the sweet-voiced songstress Jenny, who works in the local museum. Johnny, who performs as the Pictish Trail. They do like their nom de plumes. A man they call the Lone Pigeon, former member of cult outfit The Beta Band, real name Gordon. And then there's plain and simple James Yorkston. I think that's his real name. The breakthrough act of the Fence Collective, he's signed to Domino Records, and his gentle, ever so slightly melancholy music has won him a lot of admirers. Jarvis Cocker's a fan, and I should also confess that my husband and I played his music at our wedding. So I'm rather excited to be meeting him in the local pub where he's playing a few tunes later. So here we are in the Boat Tavern. Me, Kenny and Mr. James Yorkston. It's a big thrill for me to be here with you, James, a big fan of yours. You're currently garnering a lot of praise for yourself, especially with your latest album, The Year of the Leopard. How are you dealing with being so successful?
I don't really consider myself that successful. I consider myself to be existing very happily in the margins, out with the glare of mainstream media. But I'm very happy to be there.
But you're kind of the name on a lot of people's lips at the moment, Fence Collective generally, but you as well, as kind of one of the leading players.
I don't really feel it as such, you know, but if that's what's happening in London, then that's good.
I'm just bringing word. I've just come to tell you.
But look who's getting involved.
Now, there's been a lot of excitement in the papers about folk being all hip all of a sudden, which will please my dad no end. And James, Kenny and the Collective are regularly cited as movers and shakers of this new folk revival. But But do they see themselves as 21st century folkies? Time to talk about the F word. I can't help but feel like this is a new kind of folk music that you're making. Do you describe it as folk music yourself?
No, I don't at all. Really, I just think we're songwriters. I mean, we do a lot of traditional songs, but mostly we're songwriters, you know. I think there's a big difference between just a singer-songwriter who's influenced by folk music and folk musicians. I'm lucky enough that in my band I've got a lot of great musicians who also play in traditional bands, and I would consider them folk musicians. But for me, I'm just a songwriter. The beauty and the melody, the rhythm of your words, the beauty and the melody. When Kenny and I started doing this type of music, we didn't think that we were going to get signed by London labels. We didn't think we'd be playing outside Fife. So we were allowed to grow just naturally and just write music that lasted for us and worked for us. And it was just purely through that other people seemed to cotton on that what we were doing was actually real.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because that is kind of, that insulation, which has protected what you make, actually ends up being a kind of escapism for your audience. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. It's stories, isn't it? I think people get drawn in by stories. People are looking for the details again. They don't just want whitewashed, because it seems like everything else is whitewashed. Everything's in life is like the same gadgets, the same brand of this, that everyone wear this. And then if you've got somebody that comes along with these little intimate details, that's charming.
So there you have it, a little glimpse of the musical outpost that's making waves. I'm not sure now whether it's future folk or new folk or just something that sounds a bit like folk, but whatever it is, I love it. And I think it's safe to say that whether or not the Fence Collective conquer the world, they'll still be playing down their local for years to come.
So what's it like to have a Friday night in New